All right. Well, good morning. Welcome to our morning devotions. This is episode 216. We're in 1 Kings 11. I posted verses 28 through 43 and entitled this morning's devotions Jeroboam and Solomon's efforts to thwart the will of God. Jeroboam and Solomon's efforts to thwart the will of God. Now, I'm going to skip over verses 14 through 25 because there's some details here, but basically what it says is God's going to raise up two guys. One's name is Hadad. He's an Edomite. And the other is Rezon. He's going to be the king in Syria, up in Syria. And both of these men God is going to raise up to begin to plague the peace that Solomon has enjoyed through his entire reign. He's nearing the end of his life, but because of the sin of turning away from God, all right, and not being perfect as his father David, not staying on the trajectory. That one thing God is going to do is he's going to bring in these two men who are going to be like thorns in the side of Solomon as he comes to the end of his reign, nearing the end of his reign. But the bigger problem, and that's verses 14 through 25, which is just the repercussions of Solomon's sin, that the peace in the land is going to be disturbed now because of the intrusion of these men from Edom and Syria. Where we pick up is in verse 26 with this man named Jeroboam, and you're going to want to remember his name. For those that are familiar with this, there is a phrase that's used all the way through the Old Testament, which is the sins of Jeroboam. The sins of Jeroboam. And I'm not there yet, but Jeroboam is going to be a big player here. And this is where he's introduced. Now, the way he's introduced here makes him sound like kind of a noble person, but when he finally gets in a position of authority, he begins to demonstrate his political maneuvering and leads the nation of Israel into the perhaps the worst idolatry. There's been great issues of idolatry all through the history of Israel, but he actually sets up an idolatrous religious system in Dan and Bethel. In the worshiping of the golden calves, and he says, "These are your gods, O Israel." Anyway, that's the sins of Jeroboam. He's going to insert idolatry right into the regular religious practice of the 10 northern tribes. But that's coming. This is how he's introduced, however, and we'll lay the groundwork here for this man, Jeroboam. Jeroboam. And there's two names that rhyme. Solomon's son's name is Rehoboam, and he sounds like a spoiled brat. And then Jeroboam, which is a skilled leader here, is we're going to find out about Jeroboam. And that is why, in part, Solomon is so fearful of him and he tries to kill him. So let's pick up then in verse 26. It says, and Jeroboam the son of Nebat, the Ephrathite of Zereda, that is, he's up from Ephraim. That's what we're looking at. He's up from the north from Ephraim. Let's see. Of Zereda, Solomon's servant, whose mother's name was Zeruah, a widow woman, even he lifted up his hand against the king. And then in verse 27, and this was the cause that he lifted up his hand against the king. And this lifting up your hand against the king is different than what we read about Hadad and Rezon of these other foreign problems. This is a man that's fomenting rebellion right in against Solomon. That is, he's causing a rebellion to rise up. He's stirring up a rebellion among the people against Solomon. All right, and there's an interesting note here on how this would have worked. This rebellion, what the men that understand this well say, was basically a job problem. It was like a union issue. Okay, that what Solomon was asking these guys to do in repairing the walls and the breach here, and then Milo, he pushed this off on the men from Joseph, which would have been Ephraim and Manasseh, to do the heavy lifting. All right, and we draw that from other portions of Scripture. And he puts Jeroboam in charge of these guys. So what's happening is you take these two powerhouse nations in the north, or tribes in the north, Ephraim and Manasseh, particularly Ephraim, you give them all the hard work, of rebuilding the wall and in building this fortress of Milo. And then those in Judah get the things where Solomon is, get more of the lightweight stuff. And the guys from the north said they're not going to have it. So this would have prompted Jeroboam to stir up this rebellion. Okay, why is Solomon treating us in the north so poorly, giving us this heavy yoke to bear, and others didn't have to bear it? And it's that they turn to chapter 12, verse 4, when there's the debate that goes on about what's happening in Israel. And it tells us here, and it says, Thy father made our yoke grievous. Now therefore make thou the grievous service of thy father in this heavy yoke which is upon us lighter, and we will serve thee. See, all they're trying to say is spread out the hard work, the heavy yoke. That's how some connect these verses, all right? The near antecedent to this is what we're reading here, all right, and what prompted this rebellion. And so there's this spirit of rebellion because Solomon is mistreating and not treating the tribes evenly, okay, with equity, all right, when it comes to this heavy lifting. So, and that's what it comes down to. So he's fomenting this rebellion, stirring up rebellion, and it says, and this was the cause that he lifted up his hand against the king. Solomon built Milo and repaired the breaches of the city of David his father. You see, it's in the process of rebuilding is the point, that he stirs up this rebellion. And the man Jeroboam was a mighty man of valor, that he is a man of courage. He has a warrior spirit. He is a leader. He's a good, as we read it here, he's king material is the point. A man of valor. And Solomon, seeing the young man that he was industrious, that is, he's also a hard worker. That is, he's going to be a leader of men. He's going to put him in charge of this work. Solomon recognizes this in Jeroboam, so things start off really well. He's a man of valor. He's a man of courage. That would be, he's a man of integrity. He's a leader of men, and he's hardworking. I mean, he's going to make a good administrator in this building project. He's going to make a good overseer. He's going to be like your general contractor to make sure all of this work gets done right. And Solomon recognizes this in Jeroboam. All right, this is the man. It said he made him rule over all the charge of the house of Joseph, which would have been Joseph's. That there is no technically a house of Joseph. The house of Joseph would have been his two boys that occupied two tribes. That's why there's always 13 tribes, but only 12 parcels of land. There's 12 parcels of land because the Levites didn't get any land, but there's 13 tribes because one of the 12 sons of Jacob was Joseph, which is divided between his two boys, Ephraim and Manasseh, right? So that's what we're looking at here. There's always 13 tribes, but there's only 12 plots of land because the Levites didn't get a plot of land because their duty was just to serve in the tabernacle. All right, they weren't farmers. Okay, they were the priests. So, and so in verse 29, and it came to pass at the time when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem, and here is God's intervention. Here we go. So he's leaving Jerusalem, which not a big deal. It said, and the prophet Ahijah, the Shilonite, found him in the way. And he clad himself with a new garment, and the two were alone in the field. So Jeroboam and Ahijah meet, and they're all by themselves. All right, and Ahijah caught the new garment that was on him. That is, Jeroboam's wearing a new coat or whatever. Okay, a cloak. It's new. They just want to make sure it's new. So they meet in the way, and Ahijah takes this cloak off of Jeroboam and tears it into 12 pieces. Oh, okay. This is what prophets do, though, right? All these visual aids you get. Listen, you never want a visual aid from the Lord. I'll raise my voice saying that. You just want to believe his word. Because if he gives you a visual aid, it's too late. Okay? You just have to do it right, or he's going to show you what he's going to do. And you never want to have a visual aid from the Lord. You just want to believe what he says. And it says, so he catches him by the new garment that was on him and rent it into 12 pieces. And he said to Jeroboam, take thee 10 pieces. So he's going to give him 10. For thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, behold, I will rend the kingdom out of the hand of Solomon and give 10 tribes to thee. This is the word of the prophet to Jeroboam. God is saying this now, and he's got a reason for it. Okay, he's going to plague the house of Israel for a while, not forever, it's going to say later. He goes on, but he shall have one tribe for my servant David's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, the city which I have chosen out of the tribes of Israel, which is going to be Judah. Okay, there's Judah. So, because, and here it is, verse 33. Why is this happening? We already know, but here it is again. Because they have forsaken me, right? We read that yesterday. They have forsaken me, have worshipped Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, and Melcom, of the children of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways to do which is right in mine eyes, and to keep my statutes and my judgment as David his father. That is, because Solomon has done all of this, and he's brought these, and I say heavy hitters, but there's some gods in the pantheon of gods, as you read about them in the Old Testament, that were just led whole nations astray. I mean, these false gods, but they had such impact. And I mentioned yesterday, Baal is going to be the big one. But these are gods, and I'm pretty sure all of these received human sacrifices. All the way back, we only have Saul, David, Solomon, third king now, and this kind of terrible mainstream idolatry has been brought into the land of Israel. All right, that's what we're seeing here. Terrible idolatry. And it goes on in verse 34. Howbeit I will not take the whole kingdom out of his hand, but I will make him prince all the days of his life for David my servant's sake. So, you're not going to get it all, whom I choose, because he kept my commandments and my statutes. In verse 35, but I will take the kingdom out of his son's hand. I'm not going to take it away from Solomon for David's sake, but I'm going to take it away from his boy, Rehoboam. I will take the kingdom out of his son's hand and will give it unto thee, even 10 tribes. You're going to get the 10 tribes in the north. So I'm not going to do it during the life of Solomon, and it's interesting, at the end of this chapter is the death of Solomon, and Rehoboam is going to reign in his stead, and nobody wants Solomon's boy if his boy's going to act the same way his dad did, all right? And his boy is going to say, not only am I going to be what my dad was, I'm going to be worse than my dad, and that is when the 10 tribes of the north said, we've had it, and they choose Jeroboam to be their king. And this chapter 12 is where the nation is divided, which stays divided until its end. I mean, what we're looking at here, because of what Solomon did, and then with his boy, and what we're reading here, changed the face of Israel until it was destroyed by the Assyrians and the Babylonians. The pinnacle of this, the beginning of this, is right here, and what we're hearing. Israel is never going to be the same. Now when you read through the Old Testament about the kings of Israel, you have to read about a king in Samaria over Israel and a king in Jerusalem reigning over Judah. Now you have Israel in the north and Judah in the south. You have two kings running all the time, sometimes at war with one another, sometimes at peace with one another. In the south, you get a few good kings. In the north, not one good king. And sometimes the kings in the south are confederate with the kings in the north. They lean on one another. They fight one another. After this, it's a calamity. This is just the beginning of a calamity. And neither nation gets it right. So the Assyrians come in 722 BC and wipe out Samaria in the north. And in 586 BC, the Babylonians come in and destroy Jerusalem and the temple. And that brings you to the end of the Bible. And then you have the post or after the exile prophets trying to get the people, when they come back from the exile, on the rails, and they are still not there. All right. And then you get the Chronicles is the last book in the Hebrew Bible, but Malachi in our Bible, 400 silent years, and then we read about the account of Matthew. Okay, what we call the New Testament. All right, let's keep going. But that's where this all starts. Um, he said, but I will take the kingdom out of his son's hand and will give it unto thee even 10 tribes. And unto his son I will give one tribe. That is to Rehoboam, I'm going to give Judah. That David my servant may have a light away before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen me to put my name there. So there's still going to be memory of the history of David, because I'm going to allow his boy to serve in that one tribe. He said, and I will take thee. The prophet is telling Jeroboam this. I will take thee, and thou shalt reign according to all that thy soul desireth, and shalt be the king over Israel. And there it is. You're going to be the king over Israel because of everything that Solomon's done. All right? I'm not going to give it all to you. We're going to divide it up between Solomon's boy and you. You're going to get most of it in the north. He's going to get one tribe in the south. All right? We're doing this for David's sake. That's what he's saying. But he said, you're going to be the king in the north. And it shall be. And here it is, verse 38. This, when you read this, just lean back in your chair and say, no kings do this. All right? David, okay, I'll say David did it. David did it. But Solomon and nobody after this does it. All right? A handful of guys here and there. I shouldn't say nobody, because there's some kings that do well. But he says this, and it shall be, if thou wilt hearken unto all that I command thee, he's telling this to Jeroboam, and wilt walk in my ways, obey the law of Moses, and do that which is right in my sight, that is, follow my will, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as David my father did. That is, David stayed on a trajectory of obedience with bumps, as opposed to not staying on the trajectory and giving up the faith, so to speak, which is what Solomon did. He never repented of any of this. You get all the way to it, he dies. He dies trying to kill Jeroboam, all right? And David, after every sin, after he's confronted with every sin, he confesses it and then deals with the consequences. The adultery, he confesses it and deals with and the murder, he deals with the consequences. The numbering of the people at the end, terrible. He confesses it and throws himself to the mercy of God. And then we read about David in the Psalms. I mean, his attitudes toward all this and how he always trusted in God. Even while he's lamenting, he ends with a vow of trust in these laments. David stays on the course. Solomon doesn't. All right, that's the point. And that's why it's David. He said, in my commandments, as David my servant did, that I will be with thee. I'm going to be, God says, I will be with you, Jeroboam, and build thee a sure house. Now listen to this. I am going to build you a solid house, that is, as far as your family goes, as far as your reign in Israel. And he says this, as I built for David. Whoa. I will do for you, if you will obey my word, Jeroboam, what I did for David. This is gigantic. This is gigantic. All right, because he starts out rebelling against Solomon. It's almost by divine decree, because Solomon here, and I hate this, but he's off the rails. Okay, he's not thinking clearly. He's getting up in years, and he's made bad decisions. And now Rehoboam, who's young, a man of valor, of virtue, a man that's industrious, that Solomon recognizes the value of him. God says, I'm going to put you on the throne in Israel, and if you will follow my word and my leading, all right, if you'll do that, then I'm going to prosper you, and I'm going to establish you. I will build thee a sure house as I built for David. Wow, that's great. And will give Israel unto thee. He says, that's what I'm going to do. He said, and I will, and here's the verse I referenced earlier. He said, and I will for this, in doing this for you, afflict the seed of David. Afflict the seed of David is the descendants of Rehoboam. Okay. All right. You got Solomon, his boy is going to be Rehoboam. He says, I'm going to afflict the family, the seed of David with you up there as the king, but not forever. All right. That's not going to be forever, because there's going to be the representative of David's lineage in the south. All right. So you're going to be a thorn in his side, but not forever. And then it says this, verse 40, which is where I got the title, and Solomon's efforts to thwart the will of God. Solomon knows all this happened. Solomon sought, therefore, based on this, Solomon sought, therefore, to kill Jeroboam. Yep, that's what kings do, isn't it? We got a problem, we'll just kill him. All right? That's what we're looking at here. So Solomon now, this man of peace, is now doing what he can to send this massive army and all these people that know him to find Jeroboam, all right, and kill him. This is Solomon. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. My mom texted me, and she watches this stuff, and she said, it appears, and I agreed with this, it appears that it's much more important to finish well than to start well. Now, it all counts. You can't finish well unless you're born again. But as far as your walk with the Lord, absolutely. I said, absolutely. Once you're born again, I mean, you can be born again and in your early growing, I mean, there's all kinds of things that can happen. You're trying to sort your way through things, but the whole idea is you want to finish well. And David, in the end, finished well. He didn't get off the track. He didn't get off track. Solomon does not finish well, is the point. And that loose end, all of that confusion at the end of Solomon's reign, puts Rehoboam, his boy thinking so backwards. I mean, when we get to chapter 12, everybody's got to be here for this, because there's so much wisdom. I mean, all of this is wisdom, but that in chapter 12 about good leadership, I mean, it's right here. So he says, Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam. And Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt. Yep, go down to Egypt, because that is the powerhouse nation down there. Solomon's not going to come down there and beat on the walls of the big Egyptian empire. He says, and Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt unto Shishak, king of Egypt, and was in Egypt until the death of Solomon. Same thing. It's like the idea with the Lord, right? You can't go back. You know, Herod's still on the throne. They go down to Egypt until Herod's dead, right? That's how it goes. All right. So you go down, you get away till the one that's trying to kill you is dead, and then he's going to come back. They're going to call him back. And here, verses 41 through 43, this just gives us more detail about Solomon. All right. He is, so much of his life is so admirable, more than admirable, because of the blessing that God was in this building of the temple and the repair of Jerusalem and everything that he did. And what he wrote, all right, the Proverbs. See, when we read the Proverbs, these are all the words, of Solomon when he writes these things, and we cherish this stuff. But men need to stay on the rails to the end, and that did not happen. That's the point, okay? So we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we try to get a balanced understanding of what the Bible wants to tell us here. Solomon ended poorly, all right? And the rest of the acts of Solomon and all that he did and his wisdom, are they not written in the book of the Acts of Solomon? And yes, I mean, the book of the Acts of Solomon, as far as I know, that's not in existence. All right, this another book. So wait, if we found it, should we add it to the canon? No, the canon is closed. I'm not going to get into that, but there was records. There's been all kinds of things written that if we didn't read about them in the Bible, I mean, what would we know about them? And it says, and the time that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel was 40 years. 40 years, like his dad. All right. And Solomon slept with his fathers, which is just to say he died. Everybody dies. You and me, we're all going to die. And was buried in the city of David, his father. He's buried in Jerusalem. And Rehoboam, his son, reigned in his stead. And there you're introduced for the first time to Rehoboam. And we're not going to find out about some of the characteristics of Rehoboam until the next chapter, in chapter 12. We learned a little bit about Jeroboam. We learned that he met with a prophet who said, you're going to be the king in Israel, and if you'll do what I command you and you'll obey the law, then I'm going to establish your house just like I did David's. Wow. Gigantic. This is Jeroboam. All right. So, all right. Well, we'll just close there. It's Thursday. And so, well, the Lord bless you. You have a great day. And let's see. Tomorrow's Friday. It'll be the last one. Oh, yeah. Tomorrow. We'll have to see about tomorrow because I have to see the doctor for a visit. We'll see. It might be later in the day. It might not be in the morning. All right. It might be afternoon devotions tomorrow. Okay. The Lord bless you. Have a great day. And Lord willing, I'll see everybody tomorrow. Okay. We'll see you. Bye.